sati, mindfulness. Mindfulness is important. Without mindfulness, then the faith becomes wrong belief. The same without faith becomes wrong concentration. So mindfulness is, when it arises, it makes the mind wholesome. So sati means to remember. To remember, in other words, to bring out the wholesome states of mind, that is sati. So whenever we think something wholesome, then sati arises. So the mindfulness is there. It is hard to really pick up the mental states that you call mindfulness. How do I recognize that mental states called mindfulness? It really exists in our mind. Whenever we recall, like if we are taking precepts, or if we recall like, meditation on Tuesday night, that means the sati arises in your mind. If sati is not there, you will forget. In other words, you would not remember that Tuesday is a meditation day. So whenever that consciousness arises and remembers, then that is sati arises in that. At that moment, there's this mindfulness, and mindfulness arises in charity, in dana, giving. So that leads to the deva world as well as morality. If you keep precepts, and when we chant the 5 precepts, means that we develop the sanya, perception that I'm taking precepts. So whenever you want to scold somebody, or you want to tell a lie, then you remember, I take precept, so I'm not going to lie. I must tell the truth. So in that way, sati arises, mindfulness arises at that moment when you abstain from lying or killing or stealing, taking things that does not belong to you. So if you borrow without other people's permission, that comes to stealing as well. Then you say, okay, I must not borrow this thing, permission not granted. So at that moment, the mindfulness arises with the abstinent precepts, and the perception is the precept. So mindfulness arises with the perception of precepts. Now, that leads to the deva world, but sati arises with concentration, samatha meditation, that leads to the Brahma world. So in the practice of samatha, there is also sati. Remember that. Whenever the mind gets into calmness, there is sati. So don't say that there is no sati in samatha meditation. There is also sati. Only the sati is different. The sati act as just bringing out the remembrance of the practice of samatha meditation. Now this sati is different. This sati means it brings out these objects like anapanasati, for example, the breathing in and out. So the sati brings out the remembrance. Okay, I must direct my mind to breathe in, out. So when concentration is developed, there is this sati as well. This sati brings out the practice, and he says, okay, my mind is disturbed. Now I'll bring my mind back to this breathing in and out. So it is this sati, mindfulness, that brings out this anapana breathing meditation, which develop into concentration. Now, as concentration develops, the mindfulness is there as well. So, this sati brings to, in the practice of samatha meditation, leads to the Brahma world. And the sati in our vipassana, in the brings out the awareness of the mind, body, feelings, and nature, or reality. Now, this sati, when it is strong, continuous, brings out the concentration that penetrates into the mind and body, reality of this mind and this body, which we call it the first insight knowledges. When you get into the realization, the first level of realization is the difference of mind and body, that you understand, experience perfectly, that you experience clearly the difference between this mind and this body. Mind is mind, body is body. What is form and how does mind arises? Now, that is called the first levels of insight. Now, this is what we call really vipassana. This is called insight. So, as you practice now, the process of getting into the insight, we are actually establishing concentration. But our concentration is not getting into jhana, mental absorption. Our concentration is developing. The concentration is the penetration into this mind and body. So the first jhana, or insight, is the knowledge of mind and body, which is different. This is mind, this is body. Now, once you break out this mind and body, then you break out the ego, the insubstantiality of this mind and body. So that is a different type of sati. So what is this sati? This sati is to bring out. As we practice, it will keep on, as we practice with this perception, then it will keep on bringing up that perception. Now the same way as you do chanting, as you constantly develop the concentration of chanting, iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho. Now as you keep on develop the concentration on chanting, now this is this mindfulness that is brought up, the rememberings of the words, the meaning of the words is leading towards the concentration on chanting. So it is different. It leads into the wholesome mind, but it does not lead to insight. But chanting, if you understand what you chant, can also lead to insight, lead to realization. So chanting is not just concentration, developing of samatha, tranquility or calmness, but if you know what you chant, and when it builds up into concentration, it can also get into realization. So chanting is both. It is both samatha and vipassana, right? But it does not get into absorption. Chanting do not get into absorption, right? As a mental factor, it signifies presence of mind, alertness, attentiveness to the present. That means to say, when there is mindfulness, it remembers the object, the attentiveness towards the present object. He knows feeling. Now this is feeling. It arises, it passes away. Then he knows this is mind, this is thinking. What are you thinking? You are thinking about your job, or you're thinking about other things. So attentiveness, it attends to the object, the present object. Now if the sati is not there, then it does not attend to the object. It just runs on by itself. It is just like being conditioned. Rise and disappear, rise and disappear. Grab something to object, arise and disappear. But it does not attend. Attend means that if your friend comes to the house, you just let them be. You just say, okay, make yourself at home, do what you want. If you are thirsty, go get yourself some drink. If you want to sleep, well, the coach is there. You could just go and lie down. So you don't bother. So Your friend comes and then just don't bother. Just do what you want. I have an auntie like that. People say she's very stuck up. She just don't bother. But that's the way she is. That's her characteristics. So she's just like that. Anybody goes in, whether it's relative, it's friends, or even stranger, she just don't bother. She open the door. You're here? Okay. Okay. And then she walks away and leave you in the house. So if you're not used to it, you feel like, well, she's chasing me away. But once you get to know her, she's like that. She don't bother. You just go and make your Milo, do anything you want. She just don't bother. So she just don't pay attention to you. So there is no this comparison to what sati is. You pay attention. She says, okay, what are you doing? Do you want water? Are you thirsty? Do you want Milo? Do you want coffee? So it attends to the gas. So mindfulness attends to the object. What is this? Is it wholesome? Is it unwholesome? Is it arising? Is it passing away? Is it continuing? So it has this, it signifies, when mindfulness arises, it signifies the presence of mind. So you have presence of mind. So the sati, that you know that there is this wholesome mind, there's this unwholesome mind. Now as characteristics, it is not wobbling or floating away. It is sort of stabilized, it's stable. It is not like wobbling, unstable. But when the mind without sati, it is unstable. Unstable means that the mind is not balanced. It is quite, it does not have these characteristics of tatra majja tata, that you feel balanced, that you do things very stable, that I want to do the work. So you're very stable. You know exactly what to do. You arrange something, then you do this, you do that. You arrange it one by one. It's very stable. But absence of sati, the mind is quite unstable. He does things at a lurch. Try this, try that. Never mind, it's wrong. I try this, I try that. So it is wobbling. Like when you're standing, you're wobbling, you're not stable. But sati is stable. When sati is there, sati is very stable. That when you watch your rise and fall, it is stable. Its rise means its rise. Its fall means its fall. It does not wobble. So when you wobble, the mind wobble away, goes into thinking the sati is not there. If it is now thinking, when you talk about meditation, when you think, do you think there is sati or there is no sati? When you meditate, rise and fall, then you start to think of something. So, and you do not watch that rise and fall. So there's no rising and falling or feeling or watching mind. Then do you think there is sati there? Who says sati is there? Hands up. When you're thinking, who says sati not there? Hands up. No hands. Now actually, when you have wholesome thought, sati is there. You may be rising, falling, then the mind says, hey, tomorrow I'm going to do dana, or tomorrow I'm going to help my friend. Tomorrow I'm going to cook something and do dana, something like that. Now the thought itself has sati because it's a wholesome thought. But the thought itself has sati. That is thinking of doing dana, but it has no sati on your rise and fall, vipassana. So in other words, when you are thinking does not mean it is unwholesome. So when you a person meditate, a meditator, when he meditates and he thinks, I can't concentrate. Today my mind keeps thinking all over the place, it's running all over the place. And you feel disgusted because he can't concentrate. Well, does not mean that your thinking is unwholesome. You could be thinking a lot of wholesome things. The sati is there in your mind, but in different area, in different. You are thinking of helping somebody, thinking of seeing somebody and do some service or hand something to him or her, or you're thinking about something else which is wholesome. So in fact, the thought is wholesome and sati is there, but only the sati is not the sati of the mindfulness of the four foundation of meditation that develop wisdom. So see the difference or not. So do not be agitated. Just watch what is in your mind. Then you can note, okay, you're thinking of what? Thinking of home, thinking of helping, thinking of this, thinking of money. So just name. Don't bother whether it is wholesome or unwholesome, because you are practicing on the Cittanupassana, watching mind. Just name what arises in the mind. If you can't name, never mind, just let it be. But name what you can name. So once, if the thoughts keep on going that you can't name, then you bring it back to the rising and falling. If the thought just keep on thinking, and you can't name the thoughts, then you come back, rising, falling. But you must watch it for a certain period of time. Don't at once bring it back. Don't at once pull it back. Then you apply too much concentration, just rise and fall. The rest you ignore it. Then you are not doing Cittanupassana, which is important, one of the important bases to develop in the practice of wisdom meditation. The function is the absence of confusion or non-forgetfulness. Absence of confusion, that is important. When sati is there, definitely the mind is not confused. The mind sees things as they really are. It's not confused. Only when we see reality and think it is a non-reality, or non-reality we see as reality, that is confusion. Sometimes to say it very plainly, when you say this is a car, actually it's a confusion state of mind. Even though it is the truth, it is a right conventional truth. It is reality, conventional reality. But in ultimate reality, it is a confusion. It's a confused state of mind. Only when sati arises and see it as elements, then it becomes seeing not concept, seeing things as they are. So once you develop to a deeper insight, whenever you see something, you know the difference between what is concept and what is non-concepts. When the Buddha says that, when I say that I am the Buddha, the fully enlightened one, then the Buddha says, I know the difference between the I, the Buddha who is fully enlightened, the concepts, and the non-concepts, that is merely enlightenment. There is no I, there is enlightenment. So the Buddha says many times to the monks, the difference between concept reality and the non-concept reality, where the apparent reality is the conceptual realities, and the non-apparent reality, the suchness, the things as they really are, like the rupa, form. Form is merely elements, that's all. That is the reality of forms. Once it disintegrates, there is no comparison. No longer is it a cat or a dog, or is it a bird, or is it a worms, or is it even a tree? Because once they are burnt out or they dissolve, they are merely elements. You put them together, they can no longer be differentiated whether this dust in the bag is a dog, is once a dog or a cat or a bird or a plant. It can no longer be differentiated. It is merely elements. So the truth is, it is elements. So it is called the suchness, nature of our body, of rupa, but we have life. The nature of rupa, but it has no life. So the differentiate of this body and that body, the composites, kaya means composites, aggregates that make up this cup, aggregates. Kaya nu, the same as this, we call it the body, the kaya, the composite of this body is the same element. When there's no life, it is the same. But when there is life, it is different, because we are alive, because we have life, we have feeling. It has no life, so it has no body life, no mind life. We have mind life, we have body life. So that's the main difference. We feel, this cup cannot feel. So while we are alive, there is this great difference. When the mind is not there anymore, only body, when it is burned or disintegrate, there is no difference. It's mere element. So it derives at the ultimate reality is merely elements. So when you think of I, my body, is actually a conventional reality. When it disintegrates, the body and this cup has no difference. It's merely elements. So confusion, because we are confused, actually. That is why we have these roots of confusion. We call it moha. We can't distinguish between what is really real, suchness, and what is concept real. So we encounter a lot of suffering because we hold on to this concept real. People suffer great pain because they recognize when they lost something, when they lost some precious things, and they recognize I've lost my wealth, so they probably will suffer intense pain. But wealth is only conceptual reality. For example, money ringgit, if it's not accepted in Taiwan, it is just a piece of paper. But to us, it values it as a ringgit, $10, 10 ringgit, we can buy a big plate of rice. It is real in Malaysia, the 10 ringgit. It can be used, can buy things. But if you take it to Taiwan, it's not enough to clean your hand. It's just a small piece of paper, just like ordinary paper. So it's called a conceptual reality. It is real only in Malaysia. It is not real in Taiwan. So actually the paper is the 4 basic elements. That is all. So sati, mindfulness, when we develop on the sanya, the perception of reality, then the mind stays with the reality. So whenever this sati, mindfulness, arises, with these 4 foundations that we train our mind, then it anchors on reality. Now it is this constant practicing of bringing out this mindfulness and anchoring on these reality objects that one day, as we develop more and more mindfulness, stronger and stronger mindfulness, then you see things as they really are, because it is like a small light. But when the light becomes big and bright, then we can see very great areas. We can see surrounding the things as they really are. When the sati is not strong and weak, it is like a small light. Sometimes we see, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we see, oh yeah, this is just feeling. But sometimes we don't. We get involved with our feeling until we cry, until we roll down on the floor, until we can't eat and can't sleep. But when we can see, oh, this is just feeling. Because of such condition, now I feel so sad. Well, if I take away the condition, I wouldn't be sad. So sometimes you see it. And the spark, the sati is weak. So sometimes you see it, sometimes you see it not. When you see it not, then you suffer great pain. When you see it, then the pain disappears. And that's the power of sati. It is non-confusion. Once you see things as that they really are, there's no suffering. There's no more suffering. So an arahant has 100% sati, so he has no suffering at all. An arahant is one who has developed 100% sati. So the sati follows an arahant. Now we have to develop mindfulness. But an arahant has 100%. So any object that touches the sense consciousness, mindfulness arises. Because it has already, the sati has already anchored itself strongly on reality objects. So it knows the difference between what is conceptual realities and what is the real, ultimate realities of this mind and body. So in other words, characteristics of not wobbling, functions of absence of confusion. So manifested as guardianship, it guards the mind. When there's sati, objects cannot penetrate the mind, cannot cause disturbances to the mind. So Buddha says that if we have sati, everywhere we go we are safe. We are safe from lamentation, pain, grief, despair, because we protect the mind. When people is nasty, we just walk away. We know, okay, there's a nasty person there, so let's not get involved, let's disappear. So we know that, okay, if we see things we don't like, we know that, okay, we have to practice seeing. It's just seeing. Because we are born with this eye consciousness, therefore we can't escape from seeing. So it's just seeing, because the object is there, it comes into contact with the eye consciousness. So it's merely just seeing. It's just seeing. So it is a reality, it's a manifestation of combination that produce the object. So you just see the object, it's just seeing. So in other words, it manifested as guardianship, it guards our mind. And the cause of its arising, how do sati arises? How do mindfulness arises? Thira sanya, in Pali, strong perception. Once we develop strong perception in our mind, then sati keep on arising. Now we can develop strong perceptions in many ways. In many ways. Strong perception, like, for example, like, let's say chanting, for example. If you constantly do chanting, then for no reason you'll be eating your food and chanting arises in your mind because of the perception. Then that perception brings out the mindfulness. Or you are doing rising, falling. For no reason, you will be watching television and suddenly your mind goes into your stomach there, rising, falling. Have you experienced that? Anybody experienced that? Hands up. Very good. Very good. Or you do walking meditation. You're walking, lifting, pushing. And then one day you are in the garden doing walking and suddenly your mind goes to lifting, pushing, automatic. So you have developed thira sanya, strong perception. So it brings out the mindfulness. So if you do that in your meditation, constantly bring your mind to the objects, the four foundations of objects. So the object is very important for our meditation. If you have different objects, then it produces different forms of meditation. If you have samatha objects, they produce samatha, concentration objects that goes into absorption. But if you have the mindfulness object, then it produce insight, wisdom. So object is very important for our training. If you use hallucination, mental creation objects, what does it produce? It produces madness of mind. If you start to imagine a lot of things in your meditation, and what does imagination produce? It produces hallucination because it's the wrong object. So in meditation, it is very important that you use the right object. You must not use the wrong object. If you use the wrong objects for meditation, then it leads the wrong way. Then it's called wrong concentration. And wrong concentration leads to suffering. Right? Today's subject is quite deep on sati, but the Buddha says that if you go into these characteristics, you go into this function, manifestation, proximate cause, then you can understand more clearly these mental states. Otherwise, you'll be totally confused what sati is. Sati. What is this sati? It arises, but arises when, how, where? So when you go through this systematic exposition, which the Buddha always used that in certain subjects that are very vague. So in order to explain and make clear, Buddha will go to the proximate cause, how it arises, you see, by way of proximate cause. So it is a very deep subject. It is an Abhidhamma exposition. If you expound it in such way, then it is very deep subject. We call it Abhidhamma, abstract. It goes into the abstract. But it is good to go in deeper into this subject because you are actually practicing it. So one of these days you will start to experience what sati is, what actually is mindfulness. Meditators who have been meditating for 10, 20 years and you say, what is sati? They say, sati, don't know what sati is. After meditating for 20, 30 years, they don't know what really mindfulness is. So only when you go to this, expound it more in detail, then you start to grasp more clearly what sati is. Otherwise, some meditators think there is no sati. Meditation, there is no sati, no need of sati, because they don't really understand in detail the characteristics and the manifestation and function. Yes. Any question? Is it very difficult to understand? But don't worry, I will repeat it once in a while. Make sure it's sinks in. Is it very difficult to understand? As usual, no response. One of these days I have to read all your mind. Then I don't ask. So take good care of yourself. Drive carefully and practice at home. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.